Chapter 5, Fear or Courage, with which will you play? There are two parts of you. Two parts that you've always known were there, but haven't been quite able to put the language to. The first part is your heart. Your heart only wants to explore and expand itself. It wants you to discover all there is to discover. It wants you to back yourself to the level you know you're truly capable of. It doesn't just want you to win, it wants you to do it with all the passion, glory, and class you've kept hidden for so long now. It wants you to quit that job and hike your way through Central America. It wants you to start that business you've always dreamt of. It wants you to contact that huge account and ask for the business immediately. It wants you to buy that new creative space down the road and start your own fitness studio there. It wants you to quit being scared and ask that girl out. It wants you to quit being scared and leave that guy you should have left years ago. You only live once was an expression created by your heart. It wants you to approach your fellow game players and ask for their help on your quest for success. It wants you to place all your chips on the table and announce you're all in on your ideas. It wants you to try new tactics, even if you're not sure they'll work. Whether you fail forward or fail backward, your heart will still think you're God's gift to the world and love you anyway. Whether you win or lose the sales game, your heart can only see the perfection in your story up to date. So it can only ask, what have we got to lose? Let's go for it. And it asks this every single second of every single day. And the sales game is where your heart truly gets to shine if you allow it. But there's something standing in its way. It's that other part. That other part is called your ego. Your ego only wants to keep you safe, out of harm's way. And it doesn't matter if that harm is real or imagined, it's all danger to the ego. It wants you to survive at all costs. It wants you to scan your world around you for anywhere where things could go wrong and avoid them accordingly. It can't have you know what your heart sees, because to do that would mean you'd be free to embrace discomfort and overcome your fears. If that were to happen, the ego would be out of a job. And it made a promise to itself to always keep you safe, no matter what. It was a whole lot more useful when we were a part of the food chain some hundreds of thousands of years ago. In most situations, it's nowhere near as useful now in the modern world. It wants you to stay in that job you hate. At least it's easy to get to from public transport. It wants you to realize just how truly difficult starting that dream business will be. What about all the people before you who have already tried and failed? It wants you to remember all the times you've been rejected. It's far too painful to experience that again. Best not put ourselves out there today. Maybe tomorrow? It sees that new creative space down the road and only sees the increased electricity bills and running costs. It wants you to just keep staring at the girl and wonder what it would be like to ask her out. It wants you to convince yourself that guy you're with will do for now because all relationships get boring after a while, right? Get your ducks in a row before taking action was an expression created by your ego. It wants you to wait for your fellow game players to recruit you as part of their plans, hoping they'll lead you to success in the long term. It wants you to hold on to those chips in your hand for dear life. What would people think of you if you had to start back at square one? It wants you to try new tactics when the time is right. Soon, I promise, says the ego. Whether you fail forward or fail backward, your ego will always be there to say, I told you so. When will you finally learn you're not ready for this? Whether you win or lose the sales game, your ego only sees why you should never play again. So it can only ask, what were you thinking? Taking risks like that? Are you out of your mind? And it asks this every single second of every single day. And the sales game is where your ego truly gets to shine if you allow it. So when it comes to your turn to play the sales game, from which part of yourself will you play? Will you allow the fearful ego to kick in and keep you safe, comfortable, and the same? Or will you allow your heart to help you step into the unknown, learn from inevitable mistakes, back yourself, and ultimately show you who you're truly capable of being? What would your first move be? What is your winning strategy? How would you play the game?
Asking for help is a winning strategy. I can do this on my own. The single worst statement to make when it comes to growing your business and multiplying your chips. In business and sales, it's quite easy to fall into the trap that going it alone is a sign of strength and bravery. Maybe this is helpful and appropriate at the start of the journey as you make a decision to leave the pack and go a road less traveled. However, soon it can get tiresome, lonely, and exhausting trying to figure it all out on your own. Some learn the lesson quickly. Others can be caught in the lone wolf strategy for their lifetime. The sales game forces collaboration, and quickly, leaving the players either in a position of strength or quickly exposed that they aren't used to collaboration and negotiation, two things that are fundamentals to getting anywhere in life. Whether that is looking to build a new strategic partner to grow a new revenue stream, or simply working with your children in the morning to put on their school uniforms, it always requires a little back and forth. So why is it that we find it so difficult to ask for help? Well, I think Darcy summed it up nicely in his chapter. It's the ego, telling us we would look weak or incapable by simply exploring that there could be a better way, already proven by someone who has taken the trip and marked all the pointers. Once again, it appears that this is another one of those intellectual truths that aren't often backed by action. So what is one to do when faced with the paradox of needing help but not being willing to ask? Well, what we find in the game is 1. The player chooses to accept that they might not know the best strategy or best way forward. 2. They surrender to needing help. Or 3. They back themselves and others by realizing that the whole will be much better off by figuring things out together instead of seeing only one side of the coin. As a facilitator of the game, I'm noticing that point number 3 is the one that tips the new action over the edge. It's when a player realizes that they too can be better off through collaboration and negotiation, whilst putting all involved in a win-win position. You can only get so far on your own. By asking for help, you realize what others are great at, and through that conversation, you will always notice what you are great at too, as you notice that everyone is in the same boat. We don't know what we don't know. We are good at unique things. We all have different interests. Putting them together makes a beautiful cake, instead of a single cup of flour or nothing but icing sugar. All you need to do is accept that you know nothing, in the big scheme of things, yet know a heap about a particular something. Surrender to needing the help required to make the whole the best it can be, and simply start the conversation. Asking for help is a winning strategy. Will you be brave enough to ask for it?
So before coming into this room, I had so many big ideas of what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. I was terrified walking into this training, like my body was shaking. But now going through that, realizing no matter where you are on your journey, like we're all the same deep down, we all have so much to learn, and walking out of here with a clear plan and confidence, knowing how I can get to those big goals has been the biggest value. I'm so excited to go out there and do what I really want to do in this world. So thank you guys, and get in the room.